Really privileged for me to be with you here today. In fact, I was here a few years ago when I just joined Mars, and we were coming up with what our strategy might be for digitizing the procurement function. So it's great for me today to be able to give you an update on what that journey has been like, and then answer two questions. The first question, what have we learned along the way? And then secondly, what are some of the challenges we're looking into? And I think those challenges, we're all going to start facing, and it's worth us start thinking about them today. So before I do that, I think it's worth, for some of you not familiar with Mars, although I've seen Mars snacks at the back there, so some of you already know our product well. But yeah, if you don't know about us, this is our organization on our page. So it's a big company, $45 billion turnover, 140,000 associates globally, in 80 countries and over 400 sites, almost there. We are family-owned, so it's quite private. You don't hear about us much, but we are united by our values and our principles. And as you can see, some of these brands underneath, these billion-dollar brands that we've all grown up with and love. So that's Mars on a page for you. Now let me talk to you about the journey. So when I think about Mars's digital procurement journey, I think about the SpaceX program. In fact, I think all of us could project our own journey in a similar way. So SpaceX is a company that's aiming to get people onto Mars. That's their aim. Right? They've already defined their why. And early on, they were trying to get stuff into space. Okay? So if you think about it, why would they do all that trial and error if they hadn't really defined their purpose? And now they're into this phase, and I think you'd argue they're doing a pretty good job. They're trying to get that ticket price down. That is the number one barrier that's going to prevent them from getting to Mars. So what is Mars's digital procurement? It's a bit annoying that we've got two very similar names. Their mission is Mars, and we work for Mars. But what is our company's mission here? Well, we want to put procurement at the center of enabling our procurement function to occupy that space between the supply chain and the business. We have this thing called the associate concept to Mars. Well, we need to have a supplier concept. We've got an enormous amount of capability, innovation, value, risk, and of course, a sustainable supply chain that we need to make sustainable for generations. And procurement needs to occupy that space, and digital is going to be the enabler for that. Now, a few years ago, we had to prove it. And so that's what we did. So we've focused on a few areas, like in indirects. Is there value in investing in analytics, for example? Also, we invested in some specific areas where we have pain points. Trial and error, looked at particular tools that might actually open up our eyes to some of the opportunity. And now we're coming out of that phase. We've trebled our investment in digital for the procurement function, and we're going after that $500,000 ticket problem, really addressing the business pain points. Now, to do that, you have to fix these underlying issues in your organization, the underlying processes. We need to be user experience-led, because we need people to use it. We need to be process-driven. We can only put the technology on top of great processes that we can live and run every day. We want to be technology-enabled. For me, that means best-of-breed solutions for the job that we need it to do. Think about your phone. It's full of best-of-breed applications. That is what we need in our organization. And we need to be outcome-obsessed. We're doing all this for a reason, for our sustainability agenda, for our resilience agenda, for our value agenda. And without a business case and not being super focused on that, we cannot deliver it. So there's a bit of a concept for you. Now, let me just bring these phases to life a little bit for you. So a few years ago, actually, I talked about why we need to digitize procurement, and I came up with these two answers for you. One was about automating the simple tasks, and the second was about simplifying the complex. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean we need to break our procurement teams free, right, from the day-to-day tasks that burdens them, clicking through purchase requisitions, trying to grab data that should be really at their fingertips. And we need to go at that through putting great core systems in the background, but also learning some new skills, like automating our bots. Now, we have actually about 30 bots doing about 10% of our operations work. That is nowhere near enough. In terms of data, Now, I have, by the way, a lot of Mars associates in this group, so they're not going to believe everything I say. They will tell you the data's still rubbish. But I know, over the last 3 years, we've actually got our arms around our master data. We've structured really simple things, and we've put insights at our associates' fingertips. We don't need to go through a million spreadsheets. In fact, over the last 3 years, we've got rid of 1,000 spreadsheets and reports that we had to email every month, just by putting this data out there. And of course, in terms of automation, you've got some hard stuff to do, like overhauling our P2P systems. Right? That is not easy. In fact, I had hair 5 years ago when I was at GSK doing the same thing, and then I had the same problem when I joined Mars. It's not an easy thing to do, but it has to be done. And then you have simplify the complex. And in this space, there's a few pilots we've done, particularly around risk listening. But here, really, the opportunity is around analytics. And in this space, we've put in specific investments where we needed to get a return on investment, and that was around our indirects program. And I've got just one example. This is an image I showed actually 3 years ago. We'd just done a prototype at the time. Right? And this is about, I can see we have a logistics person laughing in the background. Thanks, Jacob. But yeah, this is about taking fresh out the supply chain. Okay? If we don't have visibility of it, we don't know where to go at it. So we turned fresh air that we saw into data. And then when we have data, we can then go at it. We have a number of levers that our organization pulls. We have a product that has a product owner. Have we delivered the value? Absolutely not. There's a huge prize to go at. But we have started to make differences. We have a policy deployed in the US, for example, where no one can design a pallet unless it meets certain criteria. And if it doesn't, it needs a certain very senior level of sign-off. Just a really simple thing, but stops the issue at the start. Again, powered by the visibility, powered by the opportunity. And we've got a whole raft of these. At our peak, we had about 30 data scientists wrangling, getting information, focusing on a number of specific pain points. And what they left behind were product owners, an insights analytics organization, and product owners in the business who actually take advantage and leverage the insights. Now let me talk about phase 2. This is the hardest one. If you think about it, right, we have done some great stuff. We put in place some tools. We put in place some services. We've put in capabilities, trained people on new ways of working. But you're always going to have those associates in the organization who love digital gravitate towards them. Right? You're always going to be able to prove a pilot because you'll go for the area where it will definitely work. But to scale it to 1,400 associates in procurement, to hundreds of manufacturing sites, that's a different ball game. So what we've done here is we've focused on 5 pain points. And we remind ourselves of these pain points regularly. Now, what I'm going to do is ask for a bit of a survey from you, just to see if you've got the same pain points as we do. So let's take the first one. Hands up if you've got the world's best supplier onboarding experience. It's quick, your business love it, and it's risk managed. Have we got one? Oh, no, okay. Yeah, we have one. Of course you would, Natasha. So, this is a big pain point. It's the one, actually, that slows us down. We're not helping our suppliers in those early days of onboarding, and we're not understanding the risk that we're putting there. So we're partnering with 3 technologies, trying to combine them, and we're overhauling our global process and the team that has to run it, and setting a new policy. This is not a technology transformation. This is a business policy, process, and people transformation. Take the second one. Okay, this one, I'm hoping to see a few more hands. Who here has all of the data inside their organization, outside their organization, so they can actually start having a different conversation with their business? Their procurement managers are talking to their business with fresh facts that are driving new areas of value, like the logistics example I gave. Show of hands. Oh, that's a shame. Gaston, we have Martians here. Yes. So the point is, this is a lot of opportunity to go at. In fact, as you know, the Martians didn't put their hands up. It just shows you, we can make a dent, but there's a long, long way to go. So here, what are we doing? Again, we're being super focused. We're looking at the direct space in particular. I've got a great example in peanuts. Who knew that the roasting speed of the peanut line depends on the peanut itself? And who knew there were millions of dollars to be saved by understanding which suppliers, at what time of the year, give you the best grown-up speed peanut, right? I think it's a great example of driving value, working differently with the data that you have at your hands. There's still a lot of master data management, data cleansing issues. There's still a lot slowing down, but here we need to push past that and get to the value. I'll do the third, and we'll stop it here. But the third one's around risk management, and I'm sure all of us have felt a bit of pain over the last couple of years in this space. So show of hands again, please. Who here has all of the data inside their organization and outside their organization to able not to just absorb and deal with the risks at hand, but also start to predict it? No. And yes, we have one. Excellent. This is a really good opportunity. If we have Corey here, he gave me a great quote about this. Look, businesses need to thrive on risk. We need to embrace the opportunity because that's going to make us win in a world that's going to be ever more complicated for us. So getting our arms around this data inside and outside our organization is so important. So what we're doing here is we're not starting with tools. We know there's a bunch of tools inside our company that we need to grab. There's a bunch of external tools we need to buy subscriptions for. But actually, we need people. And on this one, we built, and we're going to expand it, our risk, supply chain risk team. And in this space, we have partnered with an amazing, massive brain organization to actually start digesting all this information. So for example, if we start to detect quality deterioration, we can now start saying, well, where is that deterioration? What product does it go into, and is it important to us? Do we have the contracts in place to cover us? Do we have a plan B? If we detect an external signal from Food Standards, Safety Standards Agency, or from a media alert, we need to be able to make the same rationalization. Make sense of it, target it to the right buyer, and provide a recommendation. We had the first example. It was actually Pepper, which was a really good story last week. We spotted an opportunity, a risk in our supply chain, and able to go straight to the buyer. This is early days. I want to be clear, but it's an area we're investing in and want to get our arms around. So they're the 5 pain points, but they are the $500,000 ticket. They're the issue that we need to tackle, and they're the hardest ones. And this is why we trebled the investment. And I want to recognize this is not a 3-year transformation. This is going to take time to get beneath the skin of. Right then, phase 3. So if we're going to be really driving value across the entire ecosystem, be that space between the business and our supply chain, this is not going to be a procurement digital transformation. It's going to be a business transformation. So we need to kind of break out of our 4 walls, stop worrying about automating P2P, stop worrying about our spend data. We're going to have to start tackling the business issue, not the procurement issue. And we've got a couple of examples. These are very live and hot topics. If we take supply chain resilience, now our buyers are spending a lot of time, particularly in the last couple of years, trying to get materials to our factories. If only they had the perfect business plans, they knew what was coming. If only they knew which contracts were about to expire. If only they knew the specifications and could work with R&D to simplify them. If only they knew how to requalify a vendor quickly so we can have a backup plan. This is not a procurement issue. We need to work with supply chain. We need to work with our sales teams. We need to work with our R&D teams. This needs to become a supply chain resilience digital transformation. And the second area is sustainability. Sustainability for us, I think Mars is amazing. You'll hear amazing stories of things we do, very, very deep into our company DNA. My build is, but how come the data is still too static? How come we can't get that full visibility into our supply chain? How come that data is not just static, but is not accurate enough? And again, this is not going to be a procurement solution. This needs to be an R&D. It needs to be a supply chain and other cross-functional solution. What we're doing here then is rather than put a big $500,000 problem like SpaceX would on this, we're going to have to work in a hackathon way, right? A dynamic way of working with cross-functional teams. So what we're trying to do here is kind of build this muscle of hackathon, right? Here's an example. We did these a couple of months ago where we built teams who have an identity. Their identity is not procurement, R&D, supply chain. Their identity is around the problem statement. And look, these aren't crazy questions. How do you digitize this information? How do you collect it? How do you get real-time decision making? But my point here is not about those questions. It's about building identity around the teams that have a problem here. And we've got to work more like that. It's not a procurement transformation, a supply transformation. It's a business transformation. So phase 3, colonize Mars, etc., that is out there. I don't think we're going to be fully there for a while. But today we need to start building the muscles and start working as cross-functions. So, I told you I'd talk about the journey. That's the journey that we've been on so far. Let's just take you through some of the lessons that we're currently learning, actually. I wouldn't say we've learned them. Let's start with the first one, land the why. If we don't know ourselves, we don't feel it, our teams don't feel it, our business doesn't feel it, if we don't know that why, then what's the point? We need to understand why we're sending rockets up to space that blow up and it's through trial and error. There's a bigger purpose at hand here. It's around driving that ecosystem value that we know is there. But if we don't do that early on, if we don't sell it and we don't believe in it, then we're going to have a problem. So number one advice to me is be clear on the why. It will open up your business cases, open up your engagement. Second one is a pretty fundamental one. It's kind of frustrating. I was with the Next 100 group this morning, and first thing someone said was, how do we get adoption? This is a problem, and it's a big opportunity for companies. This is a people, process, and technology, but it's a more people transformation. So here we're investing in all the things, steering committees, champions networks. We're trying out things like Genius Bars, right? Get teams around a solution, get them talking about it. But I think we're going to have to overinvest even more in the long term, right, to really make those processes embedded, get our behaviors changed, and upskill our organization. Understanding the maturity, rule number one on this one is, if it's a play with it technology, play with it. Don't try and put it through a waterfall expecting business case returns straight away. If it's brand new, play around with it, pilot it, get it to work. However, if you're deploying Beeline, if you're deploying Hix, if you're deploying a core system like that, put it through the mill. It needs to return on investment for you. It needs to be embedded. It needs policy process to back it up. It needs services to make it work. But it's really clear, we can't just play around with random logos because it looks fun. We need to be clear on where it slots in and adjust how we work with it. Staying focused on the outcomes. So this is the reason why we get investment. If we can't show, and I mentioned it, being outcome obsessed, if we can't show the benefit, then what's the point? So here, the stories that we tell ourselves, the changes we make, the value that we bring, we need to be crystal clear and we need to celebrate them along the way. And then the last one, be human-centric. It's great to see Tanya here, actually. A few years ago, I attended one of Tanya's events. She had a futurologist here speak. And someone asked a brilliant question. He put his hand up and he said, okay, now, well, it's all this digital stuff. I'm confused. What do I tell my children? What do I teach them? And his answer was brilliant. He said, teach them to play a musical instrument, team sports, art. What he meant was, as the world becomes more digital, we need to become more human. So we're going to be obsessed with buying a bunch of tools, changing our processes, moaning when we can't get the adoption, playing with the data. But ultimately, we've got to play our side of the bargain. If we've invested in all this and we've tried our best to make it work, we've got to make sense of it and we've got to leverage it. So that only comes if you have human-centric processes, experiences, tailored to personas. And we need to get hold of this right now, early on. Okay, so there's some of the lessons we've learned. Let me just give you some of the forward-looking challenges we're looking at here. And I think we're all going to face into this. So this is a picture of me and Matthias 3 years ago when I just gave the first outlook on why we're going to digitize the procurement team. Yeah, I should have worn a hat. It's a bit shiny on that particular picture. Anyway, so what I showed at that point was where we're going. And this was the tech stack. Very classic. We had a bunch of Ariba systems. We had SAP, MDG. We had all the classic stuff. And by the way, at the time, we said this was end-to-end. Some stuff was working for us, but most of it was not working. It was legacy, or actually needs to be changed altogether. This is where we are today. And I'm going to be honest and humble here. We've plugged the gaps, right? We've prioritized the pain points. We've put in the tools. Actually, I was talking to someone from Mars this morning. Actually, it stands over here. He said, look, actually, Mars has got a lot of logos. I just realized we've done a ton of stuff. We have. But we've still got work to do. We haven't really got our arms around how to make a great category strategy. On supply chain resilience, it's glowing red. We've really got to figure this one out with our supply chain colleagues. Traceability, we've made some inroads, some great pilots. Actually, we've got an idea how we're going to do it. But it's amber. We haven't gone all the way yet. But that is not my message, actually. My message is this one. I was at a conference in June, and a CPO said, we need an end-to-end solution. There are too many apps out there. No, no, and no. I cannot go back, right, to the last 10 years of implementing multi-million-dollar projects that don't demonstrate the value at the end. We do not need an end-to-end solution. We need best of breed, but we need to get our data strategy sorted. The vendor gets entered once. That data passes through our segmentation. That data gets passed through our risk assessment. That data gets passed to contract. We've got to get our arms around the data strategy as well, not just randomly throw the tools at it, because that will be frustrating for users. And the second thing, and frankly, there aren't any solutions out there really have got the handle on this. We've got to get the user experience. Maybe, and we've done this in our supply chain resilience solution, maybe we don't need the user in the tool. Maybe we just need to get them through the process and get them the outcome they need. So maybe we need something on top. So again, this is something, and I can't give company names, I've been talking to a few, who actually started to do this. They're trying to put tools on top of tools, just so we can workflow actually how we need users to do this. But mark my words, guys, you're already doing it on your phone. You've got 1 million best-of-breed apps. You're comfortable. So please don't ask for multi-million-dollar end-to-end solutions. That is not going to be the solution. We need to get our arms around a strategy and think about the personas and their user experience. So, the last challenge, and actually, I really want to open up to you guys and ask you for your help on this. I have no solution for this. Once you put all this capability in, once you put all that data there, how do we redesign the job description of a category manager of the future? Right now, they think their job is to get some spreadsheets together, to put a PowerPoint together with their strategy. They think they need to sit in a finance review meeting and go through very complicated information with them. In the future, why would they do that? What if we've automated the lion's share of their job? What if we've got all the data and all those complex spaces they could never have before? We need to think about the skills of the future. It's not 7-step sourcing. It's not your classic category management. It is not running your P2P. It's going to be something else. And if anything that's taught me in the last 6 months in particular, we need business agility. We need to be at the table thinking, guys, let's reformulate our products here. We can't get the stuff into the country, right? And predict that months out and come up and scenario plan with our business. So I don't have the solution. I don't have the new training guide, but I would love to open this up. In fact, there's a few in the audience I've reached out to, and we haven't had the answer. I'd love to get your input on that. So that concludes my presentation. We have a little bit of time, 5 minutes, for some questions. I think Anthony and I are going to work out how to do that.
Yep, am I on?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. So my job is simply to read.
Yeah, and answer questions if it's for Hicks.
There you go, perfect. So we have had a question. So you talked about scaling transformation across around 1,400 people. What approach do you take to get maximum adoption across your workforce?
So persona-based is the #1 key here. So we have a large organization, but some people just do operations. Some just do quality management. Some just do the buying. And even within the buying, you've got scales of strategic sourcing through to the tactical categories. We need to be crystal clear when we launch a tool, who's going to use it, what they're going to do with it, and then ultimately, build the comms, the change management, and the processes around them, so it's personal to them. I think that's the #1.
Cool, excellent. Is it more personality than skill that is needed then?
More personality? Yes, I think so. I mentioned, I'd say 1 in 10 people love a new tool. They will go at it if they can, right? They'll make it work. And those, I embrace, follow them to the top. In fact, we had a lady, she left now at Mars now, but she taught herself how to code apps herself, and she got iPads out to the cocoa plantations for a team to go and do it live. That is what we need more of. So I think the attitude, the self-starter mentality, if we had 1,400 of her, I think this would be easy.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, it's curiosity as well.
Yeah.
We have tech people on my team, completely different industry, or function, let's say, in marketing. But it's that curiosity to go play and learn, I think, is key. Regarding the fifth pain point you mentioned, what advice would you give to sourcing tools to ease their adoption?
So I'm kind of not on the same page as many people in a couple of companies I worked on this. Jack will disagree with me on this as well. I think you go targeted, right? There's no point forcing a category that will never get value from e-sourcing to go through it. Now, there is a mentality of mandate and push everything through, and I think that works in some companies who love a process, who love an audit trail. A company like Mars, I think the solution is, right, who are the 30 category managers that really get the efficiency and the effectiveness from the tool? And just go make them shine. Give them the expertise, give them the tool, spend time with them, and ultimately leave behind a capability. I'm not a mandate sort of guy, but I think that for our organization, that's the way forward.
Okay, great stuff. They're coming thick and fast now, which is great, because there was only one when I got up here, so I was going to have to use my fillers, but this is great. How do you decide between enhancing an existing tool for a new capability versus going off and obtaining the best tool to solve that problem?
Yeah, so we have tried, and it depends on the tool. Can't mention the names of the tools we use, but there's one that's we tried, honestly, spent $1 million reconfiguring this thing, and still we couldn't get people to use it. You know, parts of our business literally opted out and said, we're not using it. I don't care what you've done. We put this widget on top that will guide people. They hated it. It didn't work. So no, I think ultimately, when you're at that point, after 5 years of trying to get it to work, step right back and reevaluate what is the outcome. And actually in this space, it's a contract tool. We said just get it in the system. Right? We don't want all the bells and whistles. We don't want all the approvals. We don't need all the smart stuff. We just want to put it in a repository. And so in fact, in that one, we're just going to build our own. Yeah.
Yep, makes sense. And this is kind of related, actually, is if we don't have end-to-end, in other words, a suite, I guess, do you think that several best-of-breed tools together would be user-friendly? I guess you touched on this
Absolutely.
somewhat.
And that's where I think a lot of the companies here in this forum could do more to work together. I think actually it's incumbent on us to define what we really want as the end-to-end, and then work together with not just the startups and the solution providers, but also their funders. In fact, I was at a great event a couple months ago where the funders said, guys, come on, procurement, what do you want? and then the startups and they were saying, well, we don't know who to talk to. We don't know what you want either. I think it's a great opportunity, actually, for corporates like Mars to kind of define that more clearly and work better with a range of solution providers.
Yep, okay. The question I had was, and obviously this is very much about looking forward, so I don't want to spend a long time looking back, but it may help some of the audience. What were some of the, let's say, obstacles or reasons it's taken, I don't want to say sound unkind, but this long to get to a point where you're addressing supplier data in the way you are? What were the sort of missteps or what's...
I think it's rooted in policy, frankly. I think on the vendor creation, it's policy. How we create vendors in different countries varies, and the interpretation of local laws varies. And I think that creates ad hoc processes, and then we slap on a tool on top, and it just doesn't work. So for me, it was getting our arms around, ultimately, what are the 6 mandatory things we need to do when we onboard a vendor? What are the 5 mandatory risks we need to assess, and make that a global process? Once we got that, it was easy to open the path. Our DT team could say, we've got a great solution, and actually the cost is okay. Let's go after it.
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we're out of time, so thank you very much for having me.
Indeed.
And thanks
very much, Sam.